Kim Potter found guilty on all charges, first and second degree manslaughter. We've been following this alongside Fox 9's Paul Bloom, who joins us right now. Paul, a big announcement today, and I believe it was your prediction that possibly a verdict would come down the day before Christmas Eve.
A stunning day inside that Hennepin County courthouse. Daytona, thanks again for having me, and really some heartfelt words there that you just played from Judge Chu, thanking this jury. They gave it their all. They deliberated for some 4 days. You are right. We did talk about the pressure of Christmas Eve. The judge had said in advance that they would not have to deliberate or hold court over this next 3-day weekend. So it really did feel locally like we'd get some movement on this case. And sure enough, we did. And it turns out when she read back those verdicts, if you listen closely, this jury had actually come to a unanimous verdict on the lesser charge, the manslaughter 2, involving culpable negligence on Tuesday morning. Now, in the end, we know they were split on the higher count of first-degree manslaughter. And today, it became official. We got word just before noon local time here in Minneapolis that indeed both verdicts had been reached. They were unanimous, and it was guilty on both counts.
Members of the jury, is this your true and correct verdict? So say you one, and so say you all.
And with that, a seemingly resigned Kim Potter found guilty of manslaughter in the deadly traffic stop shooting of Daunte Wright. Interestingly, jurors agreed on the lower count Tuesday morning. They would need 4 days of deliberations to find consensus on the charge of first degree involving recklessness. Potter, a 26-year veteran of the Brooklyn Center Police Department, maintaining all along that it was a mistake, that she meant to deploy her taser, not her firearm.
I'm so sorry.
Potter's single shot tearing through the heart of the unarmed 20-year-old. Her defense had also argued under the circumstances with a non-compliant Wright apparently attempting to flee arrest, Potter was authorized in that moment to use deadly force. Clearly, the jury did not buy it. Wright's parents in disbelief.
Oh my gosh. The moment that we heard guilty on the manslaughter 1, emotions, every single emotion that you could imagine just running through your body at that moment. I kind of let out a yelp.
She's not a danger to the public whatsoever. She has made all her court appearances, including all appearances in the court. It is the Christmas holiday season. She's a devoted Catholic, no less, and there is no point to incarcerate her.
Despite defense arguments immediately following the verdict, Judge Chu revoked Potter's bail and immediately ordered her into custody.
Love you, Kim.
As she was handcuffed and led away, Potter and her husband exchanging love yous. Formal sentencing now scheduled for February 18th. And Daytona, as we await sentencing here in a couple months, Kimberly Potter, as you saw, handcuffed, was then brought to the state's lone women's prison. It's about 20 minutes south of Minneapolis in Shakopee, Minnesota. She was processed there and presumably will remain there up until sentencing. And I would just point out a typical defendant convicted of first-degree manslaughter here in the state of Minnesota with no prior criminal record, where Potter, falls under in terms of a category. She'd likely be looking at a sentence in the neighborhood of 7+ years behind bars. But of course, this case so different, so unique. The state has argued that they will be looking for more time, and the defense has countered, let's be honest, that she was convicted of a mistake, an accident. They see her going away for less, so those sentencing arguments certainly to play out now over the next couple months here.
That's right, Paul, and we're playing those booking photos that were just recently released. Kim Potter smiling in this one right here, also a side one as well coming up here. And a stark contrast, I will say, Paul, just from having watched the testimony of Kim Potter up on the stand versus seeing her reaction to the charges being announced today. She seemed quite stoic today.
I thought so too. The reaction in court seemed resigned. That's the word I used in my story there. Just,
not much of a reaction. I would just point out, I know the picture is, we were first to publish it and getting it from the Department of Corrections, and I know there's sort of outrage based around the smile there. I would just point out, we've talked about it locally. I don't know her personally, but she does seem to be sort of a broken woman at this point, and I don't know if that smile is so much as just sort of, a woman who just doesn't really know how to act. She doesn't know, what her world looks like moving forward, as much as it is an insult to, the whole situation here. But I would just ask people probably to give it some thought as they see that booking photo of her. She's arrived in prison shortly after the verdicts were read today.
Right. Yeah. You have no idea what's going through someone's mind when they go through something like this, being found guilty on all these charges, when probably not expecting that. Paul, where does this leave Brooklyn Center? We heard from local officials out there, city officials, the mayor, speaking out about what this means for the future of Minnesota and policing. What does it mean?
Well, it's a great question, and certainly time will tell. Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, the lead prosecutor here, did have a direct message to local law enforcement that might be reeling in the wake of this, because frankly, as we've talked about, 5-10 years ago in Minnesota, maybe even less time, this case probably wouldn't be criminally charged. It would have gone down as an accident, the suspect trying to flee, a police action in the moment. Now all of a sudden the community is holding a police officer accountable for what she described as a mistake. You saw her reaction in the immediate aftermath, clearly distraught, clearly upset, clearly didn't mean to kill the young man, but yet held criminally liable and now going away to prison likely for certainly several years. So there's going to be discussions moving forward. Brooklyn Center is still reeling. I didn't hear what the mayor had to say today. We were so focused. I had sort of the courtroom assignment, so I didn't quite hear what city leaders and activists up in Brooklyn Center specifically had to say. I know that department is trying to recreate itself, moving around several millions of dollars in terms of the police budget to try to do policing differently to prevent this from happening again. So time will tell again where this goes, but no doubt it does send a message here about where this community is in terms of holding police accountable for aggressive police tactics. And
Right.
It was a mistake, it was, by all accounts, but this community, the state has prosecuted it, the Attorney General, the top office, law enforcement office in our state, and they said it was manslaughter, and a 26-year veteran should have known better, shouldn't have made that mistake in the moment of her career, and she did. And no doubt other officers saw that today, and the Attorney General did speak directly to them in his post-verdict news conference.
Yep, and you were able to add in a soundbite from Katie Wright, the mother of Daunte Wright, who spoke alongside the Attorney General, and she was asked a series of questions about what her thoughts were about the verdict. She was obviously elated about it and said she was just emotional and audibly gasped inside of the courtroom. But when asked about Kim Potter taking the stand, she had no comment. She had no words for the former officer.
And hard to read that. Her civil attorney is there. The Wrights have filed suit against the city, and there's a liability factor here. And I know Jeff Storms, her attorney, who was right there alongside, sort of protects her in terms of what she has said. I've certainly run into her a few times around the courthouse, and she has reminded me that she can't really talk about it. So I don't know if she deferred about Kim Potter's testimony because because of civil litigation, involving Kim Potter and the city of Brooklyn Center, or if she just really was just so distasteful about the whole process, which, let's be honest, the defense did try to create this sort of monster at that traffic stop. Earl Gray referred to Daunte Wright as stoned that morning, taking off like a jet after being shot. They tried to build up this sort of narrative that Daunte Wright needed to be stopped at all costs. And no doubt Katie Bryant was in that courtroom for most of it. I know at times Aubrey, Daunte's father, was there. So no, this was a painful process to go through. And everybody pointed out at that news conference, Keith Ellison and the Wrights, that this was not necessarily justice. Justice would be having Daunte Wright home for Christmas, but this was some measure of accountability.
And the chapter, like you said, not necessarily fully closed, with sentencing coming on February 18th, where everyone is going to see and hear from each other once again. Any last thoughts on this, Paul? As like we've said, you have covered this from beginning to end.
Well, I mean, stunning 8 months from that day when that, just a quiet Sunday afternoon in Brooklyn Center, and then the world's changed. And it was a tragedy upon a tragedy upon tragedy. Daunte Wright's death. Obviously, again, people have different opinions necessarily how they see Kim Potter after her testimony, but certainly seems like a broken woman. Her family shattered right now with her going away for years, a mother, the husband, kids. The difficulty there, the car crash that happened on the back end of that, where Daunte Wright slammed into an elderly couple. We understand that the gentleman, the elderly man in that car, has never been the same since, and it's been quite a difficult few months, 8 months now for both Brooklyn Center and the greater Twin Cities community because of this. And now this verdict. And I'll be honest, I don't think a lot of people saw it coming. I understand you predicted perhaps two guilty verdicts, but this was a surprising ending for those of us who've covered it closely here on the ground. And yeah, you're right, 2 more months before sentencing. And I would just also point out the changing dynamic you heard during the verdict today, as they were trying to figure out a sentencing date. Earl Gray and Paul Lang, both attorneys, are involved in defending the former officers involved in the Derek Chauvin, George Floyd murder. The 3 other officers they're going to federal court trial starting in January. And you just wonder the dynamic right now in this community of holding police accountable, and the message this might send as you start thinking about some other court cases around police officers being charged here in Minnesota.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, we have to remember where this all started and the protests that this sparked in Brooklyn Center at the police station. They're relatively quiet out in Brooklyn Center from what I can see from our vantage point. So hopefully everything remains peaceful and everyone can enjoy their holidays.
We hope so. But yes, a traumatic experience for the entire community, but hopefully some sense of closure and accountability as we close out today here.
All right, Fox 9's Paul Bloom, thank you so much, and thank you so much for your coverage. You've done a great job detailing every single part of this case, and more to come out of it in the future, too.
You bet. Thanks, Daytona. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.